in Albury, New South Wales. The meeting will mark the 50th anniversary of the Liberal Party's birth. In other circumstances, it might have been a time for real celebration. But in 1994, the Federal Liberal Party has precious little to celebrate. The last 11 years have seen 5 election losses and as many leaders come and go. In that time, there's been no shortage of soul-searching, with 3 major reports asking why the nation's most successful modern political party simply can't win government at a national level. In those reports, a single theme emerges. The party's federal structure is disjointed. It lacks the capacity to develop policy and has little power to influence the choice and quality of political candidates. This structural crisis is taken up with gusto in a new book by former senior Liberal Party advisor, now political commentator, Gerard Henderson. In his book, Menzies' Child, Henderson argues that Liberals have a messiah complex, believing all problems will be solved by a powerful leader. Yet, he says, nobody really runs the Federal Liberal Party. In terms of professionalism, he says the party is outgunned at every level by Labor. In a moment, we'll be joined by Gerard Henderson and Federal Liberal President Tony Staley. But first, this report from Margot O'Neill.
And so they should, you know, because the only way they're going to have a future is to vote Liberal.
Do you care about this country of ours? When you vote
If they ever make a movie about the Labor Party machine, it'll be called Goodfellas. And if they make a movie about the Liberal Party machine, it'll be called Driving Miss Daisy.
It is clear to us now that Labor has won the election.
The Liberals complain they haven't found the right leader to win, but some others believe they haven't even got the right party anymore.
The Labor Party, because of the way the Labor Party internal structures operate, has a culture of conflict. It's an adversarial culture. They contest their pre-selection battles very bitterly. They have a cadre of political operatives who are seasoned outside normal election timetables because of the way the party operates. The Liberal Party is a much more tranquil, tepid political culture. They don't produce people who are as hard-edged. I wouldn't rate the top half dozen people in the Liberal Party as good enough to get a job in the Labor Party.
I once again congratulate the Australian Labor Party. And I congratulate
How did it all go so wrong? 5 election losses in a row, and yet the Conservatives were once the powerhouse of Australian politics.
We represent all the people, not just the ones who voted for us, but the ones who voted against us.
For more than 2 decades under Sir Robert Menzies, the Liberals were synonymous with government and stability. They promoted the growing affluent middle class while trouncing the Labor Party, who they effectively portrayed as outmoded class warriors tied to socialist trade unions. It took Labor 30 years to reinvent itself as a professional middle-class party of economic management. But do the Liberals accept that an equally fundamental transformation is now required of them? Apparently, many don't.
Well, the Liberal Party came out of that 1993 election, and look at what happened. No one was fired, no one was accountable, and no one had had a bad game. They'd just lost an important election, and everything had just gone fine, if you listen to what they had to say about it.
In a new book to mark the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Liberal Party, former Liberal advisor Gerard Henderson says many prominent Liberals show signs of the psychological condition of denial. Gerard Henderson argues that the Liberal Party is in long-term decline, that it has a weak organisation, little history, no tradition of debate, too many politically inexperienced parliamentarians, too few heroes. He and a growing number of analysts believe the biggest problem isn't leadership, but the party's outdated structure. In short, because there's no truly national authoritative organisation, no one really runs the Liberal Party. Liberal historian Dean Jench agrees.
Because the Liberal Party essentially is 9 different divisions. It's a confederation rather than a federation. Sovereignty and authority rests very firmly in the state divisions. There's another basic component of structure, however, that I think is really one of the components of the crisis of the Liberal Party. And that is the fundamental chasm between the parliamentary and the organisational wings. In the Liberal Party, the sovereignty in terms of policy, authority in terms of policy, rests firmly with the parliamentary wing. And it's not surprising that many of those in the organisation, and certainly the Liberal members, are getting a bit restless about this.
Young Liberal John Brogden is a good example of what's right and what's wrong with the Liberals. A gifted media performer and debater, he nevertheless failed to win pre-selection recently in Vaucluse in Sydney.
The problem is that the Liberal Party often doesn't see the need to have those great debaters and the need to have performers, and that disappointed me. That my performance, say in the media and in the Liberal Party forums, was not seen as an advantage.
Henderson also argues that political experience isn't a treasured commodity among Liberals. Too many Liberals delight in denying their politicians at all, or swing on to the Liberal front bench after only a cursory apprenticeship. Compare that to Laborites. Prime Minister Paul Keating and most of his colleagues have been involved in politics and the Labor Party most of their adult lives. The Liberal malaise is evident at every level of the party, including the branches.
So how much debate do you see at your local branch meeting?
Well, not enough, and I want to see more. I'm happy to have our politicians come to our branches and have their views challenged. And they, I think, are happy to have it happen. But for too long it's been the viewpoint of they are our Liberal Party Member of Parliament. We shouldn't question them too strongly on issues we disagree with them on.
They're embedded in a concept that the Liberal Party is the natural party of government, that change is not really necessary, that things can continue to go on, and the government and the Liberal Party will be returned to government.
Branch members have little say in policy, but they do have the mighty power of pre-selection, and they often send to Canberra mainly like-minded Anglo-Saxon men. Look at the Liberal front bench. No Jews, no one with parents born in a non-Anglo-Celtic country, few women or Catholics. Henderson says it looks pretty much like the Robert Menzies Liberal Party of old. Political consultant Malcolm McGregor, who's worked for both Labor and Liberal parties, recalls how Alexander Downer's future direction statement initially contained no separate reference to women.
I made the observation to one of the officials at the National Secretariat that we didn't have chapters on women and youth in the document, and he was surprised to think that I thought that was an issue. Indeed, he offhandedly said, women are dealt with in the chapter on the family. And I said, well, I don't know where you've been for 25 years, but there's been a social movement called feminism, and a few women out there might be a little peeved to think for women see family.
Our challenge is to make the Liberal Party's vision live for Australians in the 1990s.
There are moves towards reform. At the 50th anniversary meeting of the Federal Council in Albury later this month, some limited form of federal intervention will be considered. But it's unlikely the party will move for a radical restructuring, even though the corrosive effect of being the perennial loser is obvious.
It's been terrible to be a believer in the Liberal Party, to be a believer in the Liberal philosophy, to be a supporter on election day, to be out there at 5 in the morning, rain, hail or shine, and to lose 5 times running.
The odds against a Liberal victory anytime soon seem overwhelming, short of a Labor Party disaster. But then Robert Menzies worked out in the 1940s that government wouldn't fall into his lap either. He defied all odds by regrouping after being sacked as Prime Minister by his own party. He restructured and renamed the Conservative side of politics and then withstood another election defeat before finally triumphing. 50 years on, the Liberals might again look to his legacy of reform.
That report from Margot O'Neill.